Most businesses only focus on growing and expanding, and they give little to no attention to their exit strategies until after exit is staring them in the face. Learn here at Boosting Business Value, brought to you by Blue Sky Business Resources. You'll discover how to shape a more durable and saleable business, and how to implement a powerful, well-planned, and rewarding exit. Join Dr. David Gruder and Jason Tazinkowicz as they deliver actionable tips for lower middle market company owners, executives, and their trusted advisors. Find out where your business currently stands, how you can meet your revenue objectives more reliably, and how to grow your venture to the next level, all with a smooth and fruitful exit in mind. Here are your hosts, Dr. David and Jason.
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Boosting Business Value. Today, we are in part 2 of a 3-part series on the teams you need, and we're going to be talking about your trusted advisory team, which is team 2 of 3. We've got your executive team, which is operating the business. We've got the trusted advisory team, which is facilitating the success of the business through third-party expert resources. And we've got your life after ownership team, which is helping you prepare and execute your plan for life after ownership. So we're very excited to be talking about your trusted advisory team today. This is core to success for any business. And I think that you'll find that even though this is one of the teams that most business owners are at least aware of, that we'll have some new tips and exciting information for you to help you get the most out of that team. For those of you who are new to the show, I'm Jason Tazinkowicz, Chief Operations Officer for Blue Sky Business Resources. And with me, as always, is my friend and co-host, David Gruder. He's Blue Sky Business Resources Life Cycle, Exit Planning, and Post-Acquisition Psychology, a psychologist. David, it's great to see you again. How you doing?
Oh, I'm happy to be back with you. It's great to see you too.
Awesome. Well, let's get into this.
Let's do. So we're going to start off by uncovering the 4 big challenges that we see that trusted advisor teams need to face. And the first of those is recognizing that skill sets shift among or throughout the business cycle. In other words, what skills are needed, what trusted advisors are need is supposed to shift throughout the business life cycle. So a couple of quick examples. One is that a great startup CPA isn't necessarily the CPA who is best suited to merger and acquisition preparation and execution. Maybe yes, maybe no. That has to be determined on a team by team basis. Another example is that different lawyers have different specialty areas. So rarely will you find a lawyer who's got deep dive expertise in all of the legal areas that a business is going to need legal advice on throughout the business life cycle.
Yeah, those are some really good points. And I think we're going to dive into that further later in the episode. So just keep that in the back of your mind that these skill sets shift. And so your team will be dynamic as your business grows up. The other thing that we see as a challenge is the way that the business world works today is that advisors love to be one-on-one with the owner and execute within their silo of expertise. And this is actually to a big detriment to the business and the business owner, because it puts business owners and their leadership teams into positions where you'll get great financial guidance from your CPA on an initiative that you'd like to execute. Then you go and you talk to your lawyer and you get great legal counsel on how to execute that. And then you get back to your team, you share that information with your team, and you realize they're pulling you in 2 opposite directions. And so what we really want to enforce and impress upon you is that all of these advisory experts love to be experts within their silo. They're comfortable bringing you to their office and giving you the support that they're paid an expert to provide. It's incumbent on the business owner and their leadership team, and as we'll talk about later, an expert facilitator, to bring all of those third party experts and specialists together and actually force them to become a team that can share their own expertise and strengthen the guidance and the direction of the overall business. Also, when you've got these siloed individuals, everyone covets their relationship, their most trusted advisor relationship with the business owner. And you can start to get into turf wars, especially when you're in that inflection point where, the team needs to shift. The skills and expertise requirements of the business are changing who should be sitting in those leadership roles. That's a place where you can really start to see the different trusted advisors taking turf wars and clinging to their relationship to their benefit and not necessarily to the benefit of the business owner and the business. And so, bringing the teams together provides a bright and shiny room where there are no shadows and corners for, poor performance to hide in, but also where we can all talk as adults and make sure that the team is growing and morphing and providing guidance to the best outcomes of the business owner and their client.
Talk as adults. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I'm never in that room. I'm over in the corner playing with my crayons. But, and this kind of leads into the resource needs balancing. And, again, we're going to be talking about this harmony between what resources a business has and what the requirements of the business are throughout the life cycle in this team's discussion a lot, because that's really what you want the third party teams to be guiding you with. And so, one of the things that you find as a business matures is frequently the business will require expertise before it necessarily has the fiscal feasibility to hire that expertise. And so figuring out as a team, how do you overcome those gaps? How do you bring in some fractional support to ease you into the skills and knowledge recovery that your business is growing to, while you're getting the financial wherewithal to budget for a full-time position, if that full-time position is even warranted. And a couple examples of these different types of resource and needs balancing can come up. In a startup, there's not really any wealth to manage. So a business owner doesn't necessarily require a wealth manager or advisor in the beginning. They need a good financial controller. And as that financial controller, or as the business grows, that financial controller will evolve into the need for a tax planner. And then as the business gets closer to exit, that's when you need to bring in a wealth advisor and probably a trust attorney and some of those other specialists that can say, once you're in possession of a significant lump sum of money, how do you protect it from the tax man? And how do you make it last for the rest of your life after ownership? And so you'll see that the expertise and knowledge needs have shifted dynamically throughout the course of that. But also, when you're starting, like I said, you need a good financial controller. If you're going to raise capital to start your business, investors are going to want to see a CFO, but CFOs are expensive. And if you're trying to raise capital because you don't have enough money to bootstrap the launch of your business, and then you have to figure in $150,000 a year for a CFO to make the investors comfortable, that just means you're selling more equity to get off the ground, where maybe you get a fractional CFO and they work, 10, 20 hours a week. They still have the pedigree, the credentials that make investors comfortable, but they're only serving for the time frame that is required to be a good fiduciary for that investment money. And that makes the business comfortable. And so you can see on both sides of this resource balancing, there are gives and takes, and there are different opportunities for the business as they're looking at their advisory team.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And before we get into the fourth of the big challenges that trusted advisors teams must face, I want to underscore something that you touched on because of how important I have found it to be, and that is sequencing. sequencing the onboarding of your trusted advisors. And when you do onboard an appropriate trusted advisor, making sure that your initial onboarding is at the right scale. So like you were saying, Jason, fractional rather than full-time, for example, the onboarding, sequencing, and the scope of their responsibilities and their engagement at each stage needs to be very consciously designed so that you aren't frittering away the funding you have or the revenue you're generating on really good people that you've brought in too soon to be worth the money that you're going to be paying them.
Well said. Thank you for putting a exclamation point on that.
You bet. Yeah. Sequencing, I can't emphasize sequencing enough because unfortunately, a lot of businesses really don't have sequencing mastery not nailed down, locked and loaded.
Very true.
So the fourth of the four big challenges we want to cover in this episode about trusted advisor teams is related to this. Most trusted advisors are most comfortable when they're working in their siloed area of expertise rather than as team members. And at the same time, most CEOs, business owners, executive teams, they don't have the skill set or the objectivity to manage the facilitation and the collaboration among the trusted advisors. And what that leads to is this final challenge that has to do with who will be the trusted advisors team's cat herder. So just think about that. If you've never heard the term herding cats, just think about what it's like to herd a bunch of, sheep. Sheep are designed to be herded, right? There are lots of animals that are herd animals. Cats are not herd animals. They think independently. They're all in their own little siloed world. And if you have ever had a cat, or if you have a cat, you know that the cat's going to come to you when they want to come to you. They're not like your dog that'll be delighted to come and get loved on whenever you want to love on them. Cats will be loved on when they're in the mood to be loved on. And so that's what we mean by cat herders. Trusted advisors, by and large, are cats, not dogs. And they require experienced cat herders to ensure optimal collaboration and to prevent and facilitation and to prevent the siloing of trusted advisors that they're used to doing from backfiring on behalf of your company's best interests. So that's the fourth big challenge for trusted advisor teams is who is going to be your trusted advisors team's cat herder.
I love that analogy. And, it just brings to mind, have you ever tried calling your accountant on April 16th?
Oh,
But yeah, this is so important, and it's at the heart of everything. We're talking about a trusted advisory team, but how many of you out there as business owners have seen your trusted advisors engage with you as a team? They don't, it's not natural to them. It's not their comfortable place, but it's absolutely what you and your business need. And so having somebody with the attention, the focus, and the wherewithal to bring everybody together to a productive end, that's important. And having somebody that can structure it, deliver value, make sure that there are executables at the end of the meeting, nobody's time is wasted, and there's value in that time together. This is going to benefit everybody. And the more business owners we can have doing this, the stronger the entire ecosystem of closely held businesses will become. And that moves us into talking about, we've discussed the challenges. We spent a lot of time opining on what what it's going to take. Now let's start looking at creating a plan for success. And, I'm going to kick it right off with where you left off, Doctor. This
Perfect.
selection of your facilitator, of your cat herder, finding that one advisor that is going to be the coach within this team and working through them to create your needs analysis and start preparing for that sequencing that Dr. Gruder was talking about earlier, identifying who you need to fill those advisory roles based on skills and expertise that are required by the business first, and then starting to create an avatar for which people, what type of person, what type of professional, not just expertise and skills wise, but also personality and values wise, is going to fit with your business and help you drive forward to the next level. And then look one step ahead of that. Where is the next inflection point? And what skills and what team members are we going to need sitting at this table at the next inflection point? And if you can always stay one inflection point ahead, now you've got that sequencing that David is talking about. And now you've got the opportunity to go out, find the right advisors, fill those seats, and drive this process forward in a completely new and very powerful way.
Right. And if you don't know ahead of time what's next in the development process in your business life cycle, then what will happen is you will end up managing by crisis rather than being proactive. And you all know how ineffective and energy draining management by crisis is. So
there's only one building in a town that you want firemen to be at, and it's not your office.
That's right. That's right. Good point. So we want to give you a couple of tips for what to look for in a cat herder, for that cat herder role. And there are two key qualities in a cat herder, in addition to obviously them having really good chemistry with you and things along those lines. But in terms of traits to look for in a cat herder, the first is that you want to be looking for something that is called uncommonly, unfortunately, a tea expert. Now, I'm not talking about the tea that you drink. I'm talking about the letter T. And this is something I didn't even know about. I never heard of the term tea expert until someone that I was advising, a CEO who was a serial entrepreneur that I was advising, turned to me at the end of a consult with him, and he said, "You know what you are?" And I said, "What?" And he says, "You're a tea expert." And I said, "I don't even like tea. My wife's a tea aficionado." And he said, No, not that tea, the letter T. And then he unpacked for me what he meant by that, which I'm about to unpack for you. So what a T expert is, the letter T has a crossbar and a stem, right? And so the stem is deep dive expertise. That's what that represents in a T expert. The crossbar in a T expert is that this expert understands what needs to be done when throughout the entire business life cycle, from napkin concept, meaning, we have a cool idea, wonder if we should turn it into a business, all the way through and after exit. So a T expert understands that entire process, the business life cycle process and sequencing, and what is necessary to focus on and what kinds of expertise are necessary to have at each stage along the way. The T expert isn't the expert in all of those areas. They just know what's needed at each stage. And unfortunately, most experts are I experts. They're the stem without the crossbar. So they've got deep dive expertise in whatever they have deep dive expertise in, but they think they're for everybody all the time. And that's problematic. Their expertise isn't problematic, but their estimation of where they fit is problematic because most of these siloed experts don't have the crossbar that I was describing in the T. Well, your cat herder needs to be a tea expert. Their deep dive expertise, their STEM as a cat herder, is that they are a masterful collaboration facilitator. That's the deep dive expertise they need to have. But they need to be able to bring that to bear across the entire range of the crossbar in the T. So those are the two qualities of a cat herder profile. They're a T expert, and their deep dive expertise, even if they have other areas of expertise, is that they're masterful as a collaboration facilitator.
Now you got me thirsty, doctor. I'm an man, but that's great. And I really appreciate that. And I like the idea, that visual idea of somebody who has that, ability to control from above with their expertise being in facilitating. That's exactly what when you kind of think of somebody who's going to facilitate and master a team of people who maybe don't necessarily want to engage as a team. So I really appreciate that description. And, once you've got this T expert, once you've got your facilitator and you've sat down and you've analyzed the business and determined, what are the today needs and what are the next step needs and what milestones define that, now it's time to start really filling those seats. And, there are really four things that you need to think about, but I'm going to say it's maybe 3.2. The fourth one needs to be secondary. It's important. We'll always talk about it, but it needs to be, subordinate to the first three. And the first three things that you need to look at is, first and foremost, finding an advisor that fits within your organizational values. And the best way that I can describe this is there are a lot of ways that you can create your general ledger that will have varying degrees of impact on the tax implications of the business. If integrity is at the forefront of the brand you're trying to create and it's important to you, then you're not going to want a CPA/tax advisor that's going to teach you how to be sneaky to avoid your tax burden, or put you in squarely in that gray space of, this isn't necessarily illegal to the letter of the law, but it's definitely not following the spirit of the law. And so you can think about that's obviously a pretty extreme example. And I don't know that too many business owners are going to be like, get me the shadiest CPA that you can find because I don't want to pay taxes. Nobody wants to pay taxes, but there are ways to go about that are okay. And there are ways that aren't. I don't think that any of our listeners are going to be like, I want the shady guy. But I'm giving you a gross exaggeration example, a caricature example, so that you can see that values become very important as you're thinking about who you want on your team. And then you got to look at the skills that are required. And like we said earlier, keep sticking with CPAs because I love to pick on them. There is a CPA that's going to be great at helping you establish and construct your general ledger. That is going to help you understand your lean operational cash flow. And that is going to help you, take in some money and survive the early pre-rapid growth phases. There's a totally different kind of CPA that will help you manage a, multi-million-dollar business that has, let's say an annual CapEx of $5 million. They're turning over fixed capitalized assets quickly or expensively, and they also are cash flowing a lot, and they need to deal with how are they going to appropriately develop tax strategies, right? Those are really different skill sets, all under the umbrella of CPA. We could go through these same types of examples with lawyers, with financial advisors, with everybody, but understanding what skills are appropriate for your business today. And again, looking to that next milestone, what skills are going to be appropriate. And a lot of times, most of the time, these team members are going to be part of a firm. And so when you're interviewing firms, you can say, here's what I need today. Do you also have advisors within your firm that provide these skills? So that you can build for success and growth and hopefully a long-term relationship with an advisory team. And then the team fit. as you're filling those seats, you're going to have to be looking at personality and operational and performance styles to make sure that there's not that when you bring the team together, there's not a lot of turf war and bickering. It's all about being focused on you and your business needs and your success. And so those are the three that have to be addressed. And then the point 2 that I don't like talking about, but I have to, is figuring out the financeability of building this team. And again, we talked about, is it fractional support? Is it getting, in the early stages when you're cash strapped, is it getting an associate under an expert level advisor so that you're paying the associate fee instead of the expert fee for a little while? You know that they're going to go back and be able to learn from and ask questions of that expert, but you're not bringing the expert to the table, things of that nature, making sure that, you're getting the quality and the caliber that you need, but also being sensitive to the financial implications of building this team.
Beautifully said. And I'm glad you added that piece about the financeability because it's foundational. Good. So that leads to step 3, where step 1 was cat herder selection and needs analysis. Step 2 was identifying, selecting, and building your trusted advisors team and to continue modifying them throughout your business life cycle journey. And step 3 is, with the help of your cat herder, monitor and intervene with inadvertent sabotage. Inadvertent sabotage. If you've got deliberate saboteurs in your organization, I don't know how to be more blunt than to say they need to be eliminated if they can't be helped to stop sabotaging. So if we assume that you're doing that, then the only sabotage that's going to be going on from there is inadvertent, unintentional sabotage. And inadvertent or unintentional sabotage needs to not be given a pass card, nor does it need to be a source of shaming. It just needs to be recognized and intervened with in a good way. And there are 4 areas of inadvertent sabotage that you and your cat herder are going to want to be on the lookout for, and you're going to want to intervene with. The first is inadvertent sabotage by the owner. And a classic example where owner inadvertent sabotage will come into play is as you're getting ready for the business to be acquired or implementing whatever the owner's exit plan is, where the owner starts getting cold feet about what's their life going to be after they exit the role that they've been in the business. Who will they be? What will they do? And that fear level, if it's high enough and if it's not addressed, will classically cause owners to inadvertently undermine the M&A process or the exit or succession planning implementation process. So that's an example of inadvertent sabotage by the owner. The second is inadvertent sabotage by dueling trusted advisors. And Jason, you touched on that earlier, where you've got trusted advisors who are used to operating in silos. And then if they're brought together, they'll inadvertently get into power struggles over, I'm right, you're wrong. I know the facts and you don't, and things along those lines. So recognizing when you've got dueling trusted advisors and getting them back into collaboration is a crucial inadvertent sabotage piece to be aware of. The third is inadvertent sabotage by family members who, again, if we go to the exit process, for example, you've got a spouse who's terrified that their spouse is, after exit, is going to be at home full time, and they don't want them at home full time, sucking off of them for life energy and meaning and things like that. So inadvertent sabotage by family members who also might be concerned about finance, about is their lifestyle going to be fundable and things like that. And then the fourth area of inadvertent sabotage to be monitoring and intervening with if it comes up is executive team members, where you've got executive team members that are doing something similar to dueling trusted advisors, where executive team members are dueling with each other over whose perspective is the more important perspective when the executive team is doing decision making. And so those are the 4 key areas to monitor inadvertent sabotage with: the owner, dueling trusted advisors, family members, and dueling executive team members.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And just my last thought on this is that we will cover the executive team in part 3 of this series.
Fantastic. I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm really glad that you brought up this whole concept of inadvertent sabotage entirely, because this is one of those things where it's not an if, it's a when. Every single one of us is guilty of inadvertently sabotaging ourselves from time to time. And so why would it be different in a team setting? And, that's where building the right team and having the values and the team personality and performance fits come in so handy, because this team has to have enough trust and respect that we're all holding one another accountable for checking us when we slip. Because, again, this is inadvertent. This is, subconscious behavior. And so we need a third party that is, removed from our own emotions and thinking to kind of call us back to check and say, hey, wait a minute, that's going against what this team is all about. Let's get back into alignment. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up. And, now that we've gone through all of this is a lot of information. We always seem to pack, it's kind of like a fruitcake. There's so much in it that it's hard to eat.
Hopefully tastier than a fruitcake.
A lot tastier. But we like to frost it with just some key takeaways. And so, starting the takeaways, it's that even though you'll hire many of the advisors that make up your team, it takes a conscious effort to turn them into a true team. You already probably have, if you're running a successful business, you probably already have a CPA, a lawyer, you might have a wealth advisor, you may have a banker that you always work with. But do you have a facilitator that brings you and this team together on a quarterly basis to assess where the business is at and where they're going? And so it takes a conscious effort to turn this group of advisors that you are already familiar with into a team of advisors. But the value is there to really make this a 1 + 1 becomes 3 type of situation.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to offer an analogy to capture that. And that is
you analogize.
And that is a small group musical ensemble. So a musical ensemble has a bunch of virtuoso soloists who have come together to create music together. So you might have a violin and a viola and a cello and a bass, or things like that. Or in jazz, you might have a trumpet player, or a trombone player, a piano player, and a percussionist. So you've got these virtuoso players, and they need to somehow make great harmony together. And when you've got the equivalent of a musical ensemble, there needs to be a conductor who ensures that all of these virtuoso instrumentalists make great harmony together with each other, that they blend well together, that they synergize together, so that what's this gorgeous piece of music that they're performing is one seamless, integrated whole. That's a delicious thing to listen to.
Absolutely.
And that is the cat herder's responsibility. It is also the CEO's responsibility to learn how to be a superb conductor of their orchestra, their company.
Yeah, and I think that's great that you bring that up. I love the analogy, and sticking with that analogy, when we talk about advisory teams and we talk about the fact that many of the advisors that you need, you may already have as a business owner. And so there are a lot that are familiar, but this master facilitator, this cat herder, as you like to call them, or the conductor of the ensemble, that's an advisor that is frequently neglected, not thought about, because your advisory group is not thought about as a team. And so the first most important step in making this transition, this paradigm shift in your operation, is finding somebody that can facilitate, that can, again, deliver their own intrinsic value to the advisory team, but also call that team together for a purpose on at least a quarterly basis and get them to get into unison and into good harmony, as you said, together to drive the business forward with you, the owner, and your operating team that we'll talk about next time.
Great. Brilliant. And so that leads into the third out of 4 takeaways that we want to remind you about. And that is what we've really talked about extensively in this episode. Remember that your teams are dynamic. They do change. They evolve. Their composition alters. The extent to which they're involved changes throughout your business life cycle.
Yeah, so important and so critical to keep that in mind, because, as you develop a relationship with these advisors, you don't want to see them go, right? But sometimes they have to transition out, and planning ahead for that will make that easier, as well as making the transition from one advisor to the next easier. And, the number 4 of 4 is that this is part 2 in a 3-part series, right? And we've been purposely going through this in a specific order. We went from the team that most business owners don't even think about at all to a group of professionals that business owners are familiar with, but don't think about as a team. And for our grand finale, we're going to talk about a team that every business owner thinks about as a team, and is comfortable in their own minds and hearts with how this team goes together and operates. And, we're going to dig into that very comfortable place and hopefully provide some new thoughts and some new ways of looking at and utilizing that team. So that will be part 3 in this series. We're really excited to have you join us for that one as well.
Yes, we are. So on behalf of Jason Tuzinkowicz and myself, we thank you once again for listening to this episode. We look forward, as we always do, to reading your thoughts, questions, topic suggestions, and other requests in the comments section. And we additionally invite you to click the subscribe button so that you're notified immediately every time we release a future episode.
That's all for this episode of Boosting Business Value. May your new learning result in the smoothest and most profitable exit strategy for your business. With the right knowledge and guidance, the sky's the limit to what you can do. Do not miss an episode by subscribing to the show. And if you want to learn where your business currently stands, we also have free key opportunity assessments. Find all of them at blueskyadvisors.net/podcast. Thank you for joining us. See you on the next one.